We're going to be making our chicken and dressing, but to start with we have to make cornbread. We're going to be making our cornbread. I have 1 cup of cornmeal. As you can see, this is pretty fine, and we're going to use it, and we're not adding any flour or anything else. 1 tablespoon of sugar, 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt, 1/4 of a teaspoon baking soda, 1 teaspoon of baking powder. We're going to mix that. We're going to add 2 eggs. Beat them well, and then we're going to add 1/2 cup of milk to start with, and this is almond milk. This will absorb better than others, and so we're going to add another 1/4 cup to get it to the consistency. As it sits, it will thicken a little more because this corn will absorb that milk, but we want it almost not to a pour stage, but about like this, as you can see, and that will thicken up in just a few minutes. And we have our skillet greased and hot. You put it in a hot oven for about 10 minutes, and we're going to cook this for 20 to 25 minutes on 400 degrees. Our iron skillet is hot. We're going to pour this in. Here we have our 2 eggs that we're going to steam. I have a video on that, so I'm going to be linking it in the cards above on how to steam eggs instead of boiling them. Alright, our eggs have steamed. Cool them off. And I'm going to show you how well they peel. And these are our fresh chicken eggs. You see, these were gathered yesterday. By steaming eggs, look perfect. See that? And I do have a video here in the cards. Steamed eggs work every time. We're going to be foraging for some of our food for our dressing. I'm going to get some thyme. I'm going after some sage, and then we're going over to another garden and get green onions. Our thyme is still growing really well. We're only going to take a couple little stems, 2 or 3. That's all we'll need. Our sage is still making, so we're going to be collecting some sage. Probably 1 leaf of that for the amount we're making is going to be enough. Here we have some of our green onions. I'm going to take the ones that are falling over or limping, and I'm going to take 2 of these, I believe. I'm going to use this side here, so it's already hot, and we're going to add a little bit of coconut oil, which, if you don't have coconut oil, any oil you have will work, or Crisco, whatever it is. Just a little bit of that in there. And what I'm going to add to that is the green onions that I went and foraged for, the thyme and the sage. I've chopped it all up. Plus in the bottom I have garlic and bell peppers, Marconi peppers. The bell peppers and Marconi peppers I'd already put in the freezer, so I took a couple of those out. The garlic we have on hand all the time. If we do not have cloves, we have garlic chives. So you saw me forage for a few things, take a few things out of the freezer, and some that just, like the garlic, that just is here in the kitchen all the time that we can keep. I'm just going to saute this down and have it ready to go into the dressing mixture when I get the cornbread done. Okay, we have taken our cornbread out of the oven. As you can see, look at that. It's about 20-25 minutes on 400. I put it on broil for about 5 minutes or so. You could go a little longer if you want crispy cornbread, but I'm not too worried about it because we're fixing to make dressing. So ever how crispy you want it, you can brown it more. That's okay. This bread is hot. And I have one of Danny's spoons, y'all. He put King on it. This one he made probably 6 or 7 years ago, quite a while. We're going to be mixing with it. And as this cornbread is really hot, it's going to take me a few minutes to kind of cut it up in pieces. You want it very, you don't want it real lumpy. You want it as broken up into small pieces as you can break it into. For this recipe, this is chicken broth that we canned. We have the meat and the broth already in here, so I didn't have to boil chicken. But if you were going to make it totally from scratch today and do everything today, you would have to take a chicken, boil it, take the meat off the bones, separate out your broth. That takes another couple of hours. So having it already canned makes a big difference, okay? We're not going to add salt and pepper yet because I did add some salt to the cornmeal when I was making the cornbread. This is our sautéed bell peppers, marconis, green onions, garlic. We've got sage and thyme in here. And I sautéed that in coconut oil. And with this, it's whatever your preference is. If you like more sage, you don't like sage, whatever you have, it makes it easier for you to just add that in at this time. These are my 2 eggs that I steamed. I've already cut them up. You can cut them up, chop them up, mash them up, whichever way you like eggs. Don't get hung up on the way somebody else does it. Do it your way. Lots of times I take a saucer, put the egg on, and take a fork and mash them up. But this time I cut them up in, you know, just kind of medium-sized pieces. If you like larger pieces, do it. If you like smaller, whatever. It's not a big deal. Now this is the time when, if you were going to add bread, you should have some toasted bread and crumble it up into smaller pieces. Usually I add some gluten-free bread to this, but right now, since Danny is off grains, it's simply going to be cornbread. We're adding nothing else. He's not had any problems with the Danny corn, and we're sticking with whatever works for us right now. I'm going to add my chicken broth and my meat at this time. I don't want too much broth at the start, so I'm going to add a little bit at a time. Maybe about half, and we'll add the meat in a little bit. I'm going to let this absorb. Yeah, it's going to take all of it, I do believe. You don't want it too wet that it takes forever to cook out, but you want it wet. You want it to absorb more than that. So that didn't even make a dent in it. Let's add a little more. And for that size cornbread, I'm going to say a whole quart of broth and chicken is going to be good. And another reason I'm not adding salt is this chicken broth had salt in it when it was canned. And you don't want to over salt. So think of that when you're making things from scratch with your food storage items, because when you can something, you usually put salt in it. So when you add it to the mixture, you're adding your salt. I made some the other day and forgot that fact, and it was a little bit salty because I did add more salt. So we're not adding any at this time. I am adding pepper because I don't have pepper in it. And we're gonna go ahead and add the rest of our broth and our meat at this time. And just mix it all in, and we will be ready to bake. The oven is still hot from the cornbread, so I don't have to heat the oven again. The cornbread basically and the eggs were the two things that I had to cook today. And as you saw, we're using food storage things like the canned chicken. I foraged for some of the herbs. Some of the herbs came out of the freezer. The eggs came fresh from our chickens. The cornmeal was ground fresh. As you saw in another video, I'm putting in the cards on one side or the other. And we want it to sit and absorb. Okay, as you can see, there's still moisture in it. You see the meat and all the herbs, the eggs. We're fixing to put this in the oven and cook it for about 30 to 40 minutes. Check it. If it's not brown, we will put it on broil and brown it. Okay, we have our dressing in the oven. Our chicken and dressing is done. We're going to see what it tastes like.